major league clubs were incentivizing you to buy a cutout of yourself. And if you got decapitated, you would then get, free coupons when you come back to the ballpark. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm here again with Brianna Ludwig. I'm Jordan Skop, founder of Foul Ball Safety Now. Been at this for 6 years, working with journalist Brendan. And Brianna's been with me for about a year. People may have heard this already. Before we bring on our guests, as people know, we turn the tables where the guests bring us the questions. I'd like to go over some news, and people visiting Foul Ball Safety Now are hearing this conversation for the first time. We encourage you to go to the foulballsafetynow.com website, and you can understand that there's been a lot of information that we put out and reported over the last 6 years. A couple of pressing matters that I wanted to address. There's a Queens College investigation going on right now. People can find the website at foulballsafetynow.com and look under Queens College investigation. We have 3 letters out to them. Last one dated in early September, and we're due to send out another letter. We did get a response back in May when we first reached out to them. This was regarding a student athlete who was concerned about hitting a ball outside the ballpark, where if you Google Earth Queens College, you'll notice that there's an elementary school right next to the baseball playing field. So when the Queens College student told me he was worried, guys are worried that one of them are going to do some serious damage to a child, I said, that's pretty legit. So we got a response back from the athletic director within days, and the president of the college, President Wu, was copied on it, and we haven't heard anything since. We wrote a few more letters, but this time I think we're going to copy the NCAA on it because we found some rule that specifically says that the student athlete's psychological well-being needs to be adhered to, something like that. And we don't think it's being met. So we think we're going to create a larger conversation from what's happening at Queens College based on it's not so unique that balls fly outside of these smaller fields onto pavement, onto car windows. And unfortunately, like in Modesto, California, it hit somebody in the head, and we got contacted by a law firm in the spring of 2025 and told us about their upcoming case for the summer of 2025. We learned their case was settled, and people can go to the tab Unknown Modesto at Foul Ball Safety Now and discover the 3 letters we wrote to the Modesto newspaper. The people were not walking around the parking lots, we understand, with any idea that this actually happened 2 years earlier. So it raises questions. What was the obligation of the Modesto team? Should they have made a public announcement about a woman being struck in the head in the July of 2023 summer? And maybe for the next 2 years, maybe they should have been all walking around with umbrellas of some kind. I think some kind of conversation should have been born from the unfortunate incident that came across unfortunately hit the woman in July of 2023. So for basically 2 summers in a row, nobody knew about this. And we wanted the people in Modesto to finally learn about this. Better late than never. And baseball may be conducted continually in Modesto beyond this summer. And we know Modesto is one of the affiliates of the Seattle Mariners. We can tell you right now, there's 30 major league teams, but there's also 120 affiliates. And then there's also another 49 other professional clubs. So that makes 169 smaller professional clubs, 30 major league clubs. That makes 199. And think about all the colleges where balls may also be flying outside into parking lots, hitting pavement, hitting windows, unfortunately, maybe hitting somebody in the head. It could be 10 or 15 balls within a 3-hour period that make their way outside, and I don't think that should be business as usual. So we have a take on that as well. We want to enlighten people. This is how business is being conducted, and what do you think about that? That's what we do at Foul Ball Safety Now. We're trying to start an effective conversation. I'll give you one more, and then we'll turn the tables to our guests. Something that displayed on TV on Sunday night a few weeks ago, maybe it was Friday night. It was the series between Seattle and Detroit. Very exciting playoff game. Jorge Polanco had just hit 2 home runs that game, so those Seattle fans were going crazy. But on his next at bat, or one of the next at bats, he broke his bat, got an infield single out of it. I didn't know where the other half of the bat or 3/4 of the bat had flown to till it went to commercial break. But going into commercial, you actually saw the bat go into the seats from the seating perspective over the netting like a boomerang. I could even say may have even looked like a spear with points on it, and it could obviously hit a human being. So why is that business as usual in 2025 where broken bats can physically make their way over nets? On top of that, you heard the announcer say, "Yikes, look out." So it wasn't really till a few minutes after the broken bat, until they broke to commercial on a pitching change, did you actually get that video. So I appreciate the fact that the editors of the who was running the cameras and the production that night included that, and I guess the announcer who was calling the baseball game couldn't help but to say, "Yikes, look out." So we think, that is also worthy of news. So we will continue. We wrote the Seattle Mariners, and we said, "We think you should address this before your next home game." And that was it. But we haven't gotten a response as of yet. Um all right, so that's some news for you. I'm excited to bring on today is a little bit different. We have 2 guests. So, Brianna, how are you doing? And
I'm doing well, Jordan. I'm excited to have this super important conversation today with not one, but
Angeles.
two attorneys from
Nerissa.
Los Angeles, Marissa Real and Kyle Freeman. Marissa, how are you? And Kyle, you played baseball in college.
Hi, Brianna. Hi, Jordan. Thank you so much for having us. Great. I mean, I think our first question, just to get the ball rolling on this conversation, is how many deaths per year occur in the United States from a foul ball
yeah,
injury?
there haven't been that many deaths that we know of even over the last 50 years, but we do know of serious injuries that have taken place, even self-reported injuries in 2025. But we know of 2 deaths in Major League Baseball, both that took place in Dodger Stadium of all places. I know you guys are in the LA area.
We are in the LA area. I think we're
Yeah.
sitting with a Dodgers fan here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were curious about how many people, had fatal accidents, obviously at MLB stadiums, but we also just wanted to know kind of what the extent of the injuries like typically are.
Sure.
What do those injuries typically look like? Are these lifelong injuries? These kind of
Sure.
temporary things?
Sure.
Like how are
The
people
ones
affected?
that people that have been blinded and serious head injuries, Brendan and I, the journalists I've been with for 6 years, we've interviewed 2 people who unfortunately lost eyes, 1 eye, and we interviewed Erwin Goldblum, who unfortunately lost his wife at the Dodger game. She died shortly after she was struck in 2018. And she was actually in the Loge level behind home plate, and it took Dodgers about a year to raise the nets vertically, but a lot of home games took place from the time she got struck until, the netting was raised vertically. We're the people that who've been interviewed by us, we know those personal situations, little children who haven't been the same since, one who's now a teenager and one who may be about 30 years old. The 30-year-old woman who we interviewed, she was actually unconscious for 4 or 5 days when she was struck as a 9 or 10-year-old, and she came to us with almost like a gift remorse attitude because she's not feeling great these days physically, psychologically, because she shared that with us as being a mom of 2, but she may be upset with her parents because I don't wanna mention the team right now, but the major league club gave the family tickets to come back to the games for a few years after the incident because they knew how serious it was, and they were just trying to score points with the family. And apparently they did because the parents, I guess, who were responsible for the children in the family took the tickets. So as a little girl, she remembers getting a lot of free tickets after her situation. And now as a 30-year-old, maybe she's a little upset with the way her parents dealt with it instead of her parents just addressing the team on telling them to just take care of the problem so it doesn't happen to anybody else, or instead of reaping the PR benefits.
No, that makes sense. But, so Jordan, based on kind of the extent of the injuries and what that kinda looks like, I guess we're kinda curious, what the solution looks like then, and we understand kind of before you start telling us, we understand, more netting, and Marissa and I kinda talked
Yes.
about, before we started the show, just what that netting going from foul pole to foul pole looks like, things like the minor league stadiums have to do starting, was it this
Yes.
year,
So there was an announcement
2025?
made in December
Or
of
was that
22. I had already had 2 reports out in 2021 and 2022. At the end of 2022, MLB made an official statement that all of their affiliates would have to extend netting as further down to the foul pole as possible. But that was at the end of 22. So there's a couple of things that are incorrect about this message. One is, why did they give them 2.5 years if they've already acknowledged the need for extension? Why would they give them 2.5 years, 2 full summers of situations where the families are in a where it's more undesirable to be, where they could take care of it in 4 days? So I have a problem with that. Major league owner did something in 4 or 5 days over an all-star break, and that's a major league stadium. I'm sure these smaller ballparks can get it done if they're committed to getting it done. So I thought the 2.5 year announcement was ridiculous. And then who's to say that their extensions are a solution? They're improvements. We all welcome improvements. But at Foul Ball Safety Now, I've been all about trying to get to solutions. And I think the solutions start with these conversations so people can finally get a sense of information they may have missed and understand that this is unregulated and no agency has ever been notified to really get involved. And whether it be OSHA for the employees or whether it be the agencies that look out for the children's welfare. But we do believe that clearly there's an evidence of 2019 when you watch that 5-minute video, which we call Exhibit A at Foul Ball Safety Now, produced by ESPN. That 5-minute video definitely demonstrates that there's no child that should ever be allowed to sit in some of those sections past end of dugouts. And it wasn't until 2022 when Major League Baseball announced it. Two and a half, what's the math? 3.5 years after that video aired. It was a horrific video. Any judge who saw that video in 2019 would be, wait, is there no netting past the end of dugout at our ballpark? Well, guess what? In 2019, when that video aired, there was over 70 ballparks of the 169 professional clubs other than MLB that did not have netting past end of dugouts. 70. And then it took 3.5 years for an announcement to come. And if you look at my netting reports from 21 and 22, from my netting report from spring of 22 to the next netting report spring 23, none of the affiliates, not one, decided to deal with it till the last moment. About a handful of the teams did not meet the deadline at the beginning of this year, but there's still 30 to 40 cities in America, professional baseball. Most of those teams come from the MLB partner leagues with still no netting past end of dugouts. I don't know what else to say. The world saw that horrific video in 2019, and we're talking 6 years later, business as usual being conducted this way. Unacceptable.
Yeah, there's really no sense of urgency coming from the MLB at all to fix the problem. And a lot, if not all of that, is due to their legal shield, the baseball rule, which you two may have learned about in law school. But I mean, when Linda Goldblum died at the Dodger game, for 5 months, that death went unreported. So for 5 months, people were sitting in those sections unaware that somebody had died in that section. And it's just beyond me that it was legal for children to have possibly sat in the seat where she was sitting the very next day for the next 5 months with no warning to the parents or anything publicly put out by the MLB that somebody had died. It's ridiculous.
No, that's very interesting, and I definitely see why that's concerning. I guess I have a
Sure.
question and then Kyle has a question. So my question is, we see how it can be concerning that the net isn't extended past the dugout, but what would you propose in terms of the net being extended vertically? Is there a specific height requirement that you guys are looking
Sure.
for? So that's kind of my question, and then Kyle also had
Sure,
a
I'll
question.
let
I
Jordan kinda
would
answer that
say
before
it's
I
above
Okay.
my pay grade. The fact is that we're having this conversation and we'll let the agencies, take this all in kind of thing. There's plenty of math and science guys out there who can study what we have on our website called Exhibit A1, which was a published report by a publication called 538 in 2019. It demonstrated where the balls go and how fast or how often. And then the average foul ball in 29 average per game in 2019 were 53. So Brendan and I incorporated some of our own research into the Exhibit A1 document we have on the website, which even if we cut the number down in half, roughly half, 25 foul balls per game times 14,000 professional games, there's 2,460 or 2,430 MLB games, but there's 5 times as many more games throughout professional baseball, and it's about 14,000. So if people want to see for themselves, go to Exhibit A1, connect the dots, people, and ask just how many line drives were going at 100 miles per hour. We may not know, but MLB does. They've been tracking everything for the last decade or two. We should really demand to know how many line drives were coming towards everyone for all time, kind of thing. People can kind of relive their own experiences by visiting Exhibit A1 and figuring out maybe they were season ticket holders or maybe they attended games just past end of dugouts all those years. They should ask. I would want to know, was it one foul ball that came whizzing by my head at 100 or that seat at 100 or was it 1444? But tell us the exact number of those 350,000 foul balls. Again, it might be closer to 700,000, but we wanted to not inflate anything. We believe the numbers are so great, you take the side of caution to get your point across.
So I guess I'm curious
Yes.
what you guys would say to someone who, buys a particular ticket
Yes.
hoping to get a foul ball or hoping that a ball gets thrown into the stands or, something along those
Sure.
lines. Like, what of those people and what kinda,
So I would
would you
say,
say to
are
them?
we capable as a society to transitioning to lightening the expectations of going to games and being associated with catching a foul ball? I think we can do that, people. I would say something like that. Clearly, we can demonstrate a compensation package to all the youth that have been, looking for that ball, or even people like that older woman who made it to the news a few weeks ago in Philadelphia, who probably her whole life was trying to catch a foul ball. I don't know if you guys recall that. And then the gentleman went down below her feet and grabbed the ball, and she got all upset and went in the kid's face or the dad's face and said, "Give me that ball." People come to the game and they want a foul ball. They really been hoping to catch a foul ball. I actually got a foul ball on a roll. It rolled down the aisle and I was on the aisle and I was excited. I had a t-shirt in the other hand and I tossed the t-shirt saying, "I don't need this free t-shirt. I have a foul ball." That was my impulsive reaction. Just like, my 11-year-old came out, 15 years ago. I'm not 26. I'm a lot older. So I was very excited. to be part of that experience, but we can certainly have a conversation. And if the regulators should have learned about this 50 years ago after a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium, and maybe they should have said something like this should be age appropriate, or maybe we need to let the fan base know that this is really a thing, that what happened to Alan Fish at Dodger Stadium can happen on the next pitch, or, not in 10 years from now, that kind of thing. Because it's very predictable these balls will reach the seats at warp speed, and we're not action figures. When you get to the game and they tell you, "Be careful of a foul ball," or even if there's a sign on your cup holder, "Be careful of a ball," the last I checked, we're not superheroes, action figures. We're not gonna be able to defend our family. This information should have been exchanged long ago, and let the chips fall where they may if they exchange this information about what we could all expect this spring and summer, from near misses to direct hits. Just tell us. And then if it would became age appropriate, is 18 and older, you wanna flirt with danger, you can, similar to running with bulls. There's an element of danger, but don't make it all wholesome and friendly, kid-friendly, because it's not realistic if somebody's gonna be in the first aid station every other day and throughout Major League Baseball. So, something to that effect, Kyle.
I would say to the fan that has the ticket and hoping to catch a foul ball, that if that's what you're hoping for, then you are buying exactly what the MLB is selling, because they've gone above and beyond to romanticize the foul ball experience. And though it's a great PR strategy, it's just not reality. And Jordan and I, through his work at Foul Ball Safety Now, we've become intimate with the victims and their families whose lives have been forever changed due to a foul ball. And at this point in time, there's sadly no way to control what foul is a soft pop up that's easily caught by a fan who may happen to have a glove, and which one is a line drive right at a toddler's face. So I think most human beings would agree that one fan having a souvenir is not worth somebody else dying or being seriously injured by the same foul ball.
I think those concerns do make sense, but I guess wouldn't should we put that risk and liability on the spectator and the fan who chooses to sit in that specific section of the field versus putting that risk and liability on the stadium itself or on the MLB team?
And just to kinda add on top of that, I think where Marissa is coming from, with that question is, coming at this from a from a legal perspective, we just understand that there's no way to 100% or completely eliminate risk, right? As you mentioned, we don't know how high to make the fences. I've seen fences go very, very, very high. I'm not sure if you've seen East LA City College has some of the highest fencing around any field I've ever seen, and a lot of MLB fields, and I've seen balls get over on all sides of that fence. And so I guess what we're asking is, if you can't completely eliminate the risk, people have to go to games acknowledging that there is some level of risk, and we wanna know, since we can't eliminate all of the risk,
Mhm.
can we and should we really be expected to eliminate?
Mhm. I feel like the business as usual has more have been pulling the wool over people's eyes for all these years, and so be it if it becomes determined that certain things just won't be addressed. At least address some of the things that should have been addressed. Is it better off that we knew about how business was done as usual or not? I think most of us as fans would like to decide for ourselves, so I think they owe us something there. And about how we going to eliminate this matter, again, put out a $10 million grant, or whoever the first MIT comes up with a Middle East technology Iron Dome. We're gonna blow the sucker up before it even gets to that point. Guess what? Who could figure that out? $10 million. That's what that's what could figure that out. MLB's not interested in that, Kyle. We're in 2025. Figure it out. This is no way to do it. And to tell people walk around with umbrellas. period? Why are 15 balls going down on the parking lot during a 3-hour period at these 169 ballparks, breaking windows, and in the case of the woman in Modesto, striking her in the head? Tell them to put on umbrellas or something to defend them from balls. Rocks coming down from a high rise, if one came near us in LA or New York, that would be it. Nobody's walking down. It's not like we're going to walk down the street being informed that we may get through the 15 rocks that come down this week. Come on, guys. We can all do better as a society.
Yeah, so, I mean, it sounds like you're just saying that, something is better than nothing, and what's happening
Yeah.
right now is essentially nothing. Nothing's
That's what
changed.
I'm saying. I'm not proud of it. We're just putting this information on the table. Let agencies decide for themselves. Maybe we should have heard about this as an agency years and years ago. Or wait, I sat in that section just like I saw on that ESPN video. I've been sitting there with my family for years. And, we're partial season ticket holders. We sit there 10 times a game. Now, I believe if you sat there 80 times a game, you probably had a close call or two, and then you may be asking yourself, "Why am I here? And why am I bringing my kid?" But that's not the way you should be waking up to the issue, by getting a near miss. Tell us about the near misses. Educate us. You have not. Mud on your face. And just how much mud on your face? I would hope you guys find a way to establish theory and figure out this is what we need to do for fact finding, for disclosure. I've been working with an attorney in Illinois. We went to court for a year from July of 23 to July of 24. We went a few rounds in court. We established standing with a person who was hurt by a foul ball, incorporated a few other things. And we got to the point of the lawyer suggested to me that we weren't going to get too much further in this proceedings by appealing the judge's ruling to go to arbitration. And it was costing me money to fund it, but we made some points. We got some articles at Foul Ball Safety Now. People can check out the Peoria matter, where I rented out an airplane and made some noise over there and hired an attorney. And the St. Louis Dispatch does discuss the journey. Peoria was one of 120 at the time in the 30 MLB clubs, 120 affiliates. They were one of 120 at the time that had no netting above the dugout, let alone past the dugout. So there were more opportunities for damage.
Then see, I know you explained this instance where the woman was hurt with the foul ball and she then received, free tickets for her and her family, I don't know,
Yes.
for life for a couple of years. Do you
Right.
know what other injured spectators have received when they have been injured with the foul ball?
Yeah, one of the ladies we interviewed, not as seriously injured as this young girl who's now 30 and experiencing lifelong experiences. This woman seems perfectly fine. Another person uh, who asked the team as an adult, "Can I get married on the field?" And they allowed her to get married on the field. But she said to me that if she had met me earlier, she would have told the team to take care of the problem instead of asking what she can get from the team, that kind of thing. So you hear these experiences of, I guess, the words I put together, gift remorse. To the younger girl who's got serious damage as a 30-year-old, to her, it's probably more frustrating because of her situation. We know of a girl, she's about 17 or 18 now. She's participated with us on interviews. Brendan and I have interviewed probably about 80 people, 20 victims and family members. And this particular girl was 4 years old at her first game in Kansas City. And unfortunately, she was struck by a baseball. And the dad tells me she forgets things as a teenager. She's functioning in school and doing what she needs to do, but she's forgetful. They may say to her, "Please take care of this." And then 30 minutes later, they'll have to ask her again, like she never heard it. That's not some experience that any family wants to be a part of. So they've had it, we've heard it, and we're hearing their interviews, and people keep finding us. And we just want to put it all out there. And we feel like these victims deserve reconciliation of some kind. I'll give you one quick story. My lawyer in New York, her girlfriend was blinded when she was 14 years old back in 1979. I've been with Lynn for a few years now as a consultant. She's been very helpful. So she introduced us to her girlfriend, Jenny, and Jenny was kind enough to revisit her experience when she was blinded as a teenager. And she tells us a story years later. She did probably a 30, 40-minute interview with us. She tells us a story about when her 8-year-old was playing Little League, she was feeling anxiety. And I get a sense she was making her own kid feel anxiety. And the kid ended up quitting baseball and doing something else. And she said she was relieved. But that family won't be the same. And the 8-year-old may not have had that baseball experience because mom was making him feel nervous. And maybe that 8-year-old now is an adult, and maybe he's telling his own child that you don't want to play baseball because of what happened to grandmother. We heard these stories. We know that these people are all in sort of purgatory and where they're at. And there's no genuine gesture that MLB could provide these folks about apologies and their settlements. We can get into that. I don't wanna dominate the conversation. So, just wanted to give you that story.
No, we appreciate that story. I mean, couldn't there be like a more equitable solution for all parties involved in this situation? I mean, similar to what you were saying earlier, couldn't we just make or force MLB to have an age limit in these sections that foul balls do typically target?
Like these high risk
Mhm.
areas.
Right.
Oh,
So that
I would definitely say, "Come on down, adults, you wanna be daredevils, you wanna run with bulls in Spain, and you wanna take line drives that whiz by your ear on a regular basis. We would love to have you, but please be upfront of exactly what they're experiencing instead of not mentioning it and doubling down on marketing towards children kind of thing. So, of course, and I think turn back the clock will hopefully determine that baseball, that's the way they should have been conducting business. And I hope, you guys will be interested in you guys can see the website, Foul Ball Safety Now. I do have some pop-up on there that's looking for pro bono attorneys, and I know it takes time to establish theories. So we would really appreciate, beyond this discussion of you possibly finding ways to help out the citizens of California or anywhere else.
okay, so you are possibly in favor of that sort of solution.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about transparency. Market your sport the way it should have been marketed all along, and it's time to reconcile this and apologize to the victims and say to them, "We should have said to you all that this is business as usual, and we should have said it should have been age appropriate." It won't be that hard to figure that out. They just haven't done it yet up until now. Now they could run out the clock a little longer and they can keep on doing piecemeal improvements. Will they address all things inside? We don't think so because inside the ballpark, from Brianna's research, just finding things in 2025, self-reported injuries. People are making videos with their black and blue faces. And some of them are saying they're never coming to a game again. We've interviewed people, Brendan and I have interviewed a pregnant woman. On the website, you'll see a picture of her belly, which she allowed us to use. She didn't know for the whole day whether her baby was okay. This was at a spring training game in Arizona a few years ago. And there's still 30 to 40 cities that should definitely be aware that that horrific video from 2019 it mirrors what's happening in your ballpark. So we would like people to wake up to that fact.
Yeah, the marketing towards children, they market very hard. I honestly can't think of another professional sport that markets itself so heavily towards the entire family coming out to the ballpark. They have kids' playgrounds, a lot of these stadiums there as an effort to, "Come on, bring your kids, we can entertain them," sort of thing. So, the other reason why it's so important to educate and make this information public knowledge is because not everybody going to the game is the diehard fan that's sat in that section a million times and knows, "Okay, the foul balls come over here and they go really crazy in this section." A lot of people maybe are getting dragged to the game by their friends or they're just looking for something to do to get out of the house. They're not aware what they're walking into.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that Marissa and I just kind of discussed on the side was I went to a game not so long ago, and I noticed that there were, uh, like, medics at the top of each section or near the top of every section, and when a ball would get hit into the stands, those medics or the medical team, they would run down and kinda check on the person if it looked like they might have been hit with the ball. So I noticed those medics there, and then I also
Yes.
I think there's some kind of warning on the tickets or, general understanding from most fans that
Mhm.
there's risk of a ball. So for the people that kinda end up, like Brianna said, maybe unknowingly ending up at baseball games, between the warning that might be on their ticket or seeing medics, kinda what would that warning look like? So you see higher nets, and you see
Mhm.
warnings on the ticket that say, "You're in a high risk section," and they tell you 4
Mhm.
people have been hit,
Right.
within 5 seats of you. What
Sure.
is that kind of the goal? Is that the beginning?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always the beginning because it's us talking right now. So we're confident a one pager over the winter to all baseball fans about what happened last year and what they could expect this year would be a great beginning. The Japanese culture, whether they figured it out or not, they seem to be having nets a lot higher on the sides. They have team attendants blowing whistles on every aisle as balls have making it over the netting. During the Olympics, during COVID, they kept those guys there. There were no fans in the seats during baseball in Japan during the Olympics a number of years ago, a few years ago. But they still had those guys blowing whistles as balls were coming over the nets, potentially hitting a cardboard cutout. I don't know if y'all remember the cardboard cutouts as fan substitutes during the 2020 season. That's a whole nother story that the victims weren't appreciative of because these major league clubs were incentivizing you to buy a cutout of yourself. And if you got decapitated, you would then get, free coupons when you come back to the ballpark. I mean, that was pretty absurd. And the victims did not like that. They thought it was very insensitive. About the medics are there, yes, to check on those situations, but a lot of the teams contract out these, teams of 4 or 6 or 8 or 12, how many they may be at any particular ballpark. They're there. Somebody could have a slip and fall, I guess. Somebody could, the beer or the ice cream, or get hit by a foul ball. They're contracted by the teams. The NBC Sports study, which I encourage everyone to see at Foul Ball Safety Now, there were 4 first aid independent contractors of the 30 MLB clubs which shared their data, and NBC did a longer story on this subject, and people can see the NBC Foul Ball study. It implied how many people reported to first aid from only those 4 teams, but if you extrapolated the other 26, it's not a stretch to say maybe 5,000 people over the 2012 to 2019 period reported to first aid, and not all of them were concussions or lost eye sockets, but I think most of them were from foul ball injuries, and I want everyone to take a closer look at that, and that's not including the 5 times as many more games that go on in other professional baseball every single year. So there's really just a lot to dive into. How big is this problem? Why don't we all try to find out? Can we have a respectful community in baseball moving forward? I'm confident that we might be able to, but it all starts with a discussion and getting people caught up on things they may have missed, getting agencies notified on things they should have learned about, and I think they would acknowledge that as well. So we're just putting all the information on the table, and we're excited that you guys are part of this with us.
And
Yeah.
hopefully we can get this information out to the public so more people are aware of this issue. Because I know I definitely was not aware of this issue until a couple weeks ago when I first spoke to you. So I think it's
Appreciate
definitely
that.
consuming something a lot of other people don't know about.
Do you feel there is an overall theme of workplace negligence, maybe when it comes to the vendors who are working in the aisles, the ushers who are working the aisles and are also at risk of being hit by foul balls? We do know of some vendors who have been injured. Yeah, do you feel that there's a level of workplace negligence there?
I mean, It's tough because, yes, I do think there's a level of workplace negligence there, but kinda going back to what we were discussing previously, I think and I'm assuming it's something that both the vendors, any employees, as well as spectators, they kind of assume that risk being in these ballparks. So I'm sure when you're working at one of these stadiums, you have to sign a specific contract, bringing lawsuit against any potential injuries that might occur. So I think the difficult question is kind of going back on my one of my other questions is who should assume that risk and where should this liability be taking place? So yeah, I'm not too sure if that answers your question, but I mean there is definitely a level of workplace negligence, but the laws can't be too strict in these areas because then it won't allow for, employees or spectators to attend these events. So I think that there needs to be some sort of a balance between the laws we put in place to ensure safety, but also, kind of placing that risk on the people that choose to be in attendance at these events.
Thank you. And Kyle, do you feel that the MLB has a certain level of responsibility as a corporation to their consumers who are the fans, or what level of responsibility do you think they have?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, that the MLB and each MLB team and every MLB stadium, has, a responsibility to protect their fans. The degree to which they do that protecting, I think, can vary, and I don't know that I can put, I can quantify it or put a exact metric on it really because like Marissa said, there is some inherent risk in just being at an MLB stadium. A baseball is very hard. Bats are made out of wood, and they're heavy, and they're also large, and when they break, they're dangerous, and that's just the game of baseball. And so I think, as much as you can change the field and you can increase protection and you can increase advocacy, I think there's no way to absolutely eliminate those risks. And so while the MLB does have, a duty to protect their fans, I don't know that it means they have an absolute duty to prevent absolutely all harm. I think those are 2 very different things, and I think, I think there's something that can be done to get closer to where we wanna be, but I don't know that there will ever be a situation, and I don't know that it would be reasonable to say that the MLB has to, completely protect every single person.
Terrific responses. We really appreciate everyone being part of this with us. Again, it's really about effectively starting a conversation. I think you'll hear that we have a lot to say. Excuse me, and our guests are bringing very good insights. And today we had two lawyers on, and that's really exciting. And I'm looking forward to bringing another recording very soon. And I want to thank our guests again and Brianna. And thanks so much for tuning in.